It's me, John D. Villarreal. This is John D. Villarreal Radio Show on Newstalk 1040am. And if you're listening to this is probably going to be a replay of it. We had some technical issues on, I think, on my computer end over here. But I think we've figured it out. But this is live right now on Monday, March 18th, in the evening here. And we are live on LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, and X. Going to be joined by Paul Villarreal. Not sure how long we're going to go here. I've literally done like parts of 3 different shows tonight, but we're gonna do it. There's so much to talk about. Oh my gosh, there's so much to talk about. We're bringing in Paul in real fast. We've got the media, fake news again about Trump with the, comments that he made about auto, the auto industry and stuff like that. That's been kind of taken out of context. We've got Mike Pence saying he can't support Trump, but defending him on the auto comments, I believe. We've got Obama meeting with the Prime Minister of England. We've got Schumer, Senate Majority Leader Schumer against Bibi Netanyahu. We've got all kinds of problems on the Democrat side. We've got big polls that are swinging against the Democrats for the Republicans. Trump is seeing a lot of backing, support with young men, different minority communities, African Americans, Hispanics are going in record numbers for the Republicans. There's a lot of different things going on, a lot of stuff happening. Disney, have we seen peak ESG and peak DEI? Disney's seen a lot of problems, a lot of issues. They're canceling a lot of the woke films. Ryan Reynolds reportedly is having some kind of heat with The View and Joy Behar. I mean, I think we're seeing a lot of different things coalescing right now. But I would think that one of the top subjects right now, and we bring in Paul Villarreal to talk about this, is this whole situation with the Donald Trump comments. I mean, Paul, you're seeing big leads for Trump out there in the polls all over the place. And, we've had, I won't want to say the first because it's sort of ongoing, but I would say that we're in this news cycle now where I think we're going to see, we did not have a State of the Union bump. You and I called that. We said that was bad in a State of the Union. It was like more of a campaign speech. It was kind of mean. It was kind of shrill, in my opinion, kind of yelling. It was a campaign pep rally. The Democrats felt good about it, but it didn't. It sort of fell on deaf ears. I know Selena Zito was also saying something about that. But I really believe now that there is real fear that is hitting the Democratic media complex, and they understand that Trump can definitely win this. A lot of people are saying that they expect Trump to win this, even some Democrats and liberals. I mean, I think we've seen Bill Maher saying that. We're seeing a lot, the one guy that, I'm blanking for a second, that was just on Patrick Bet-David. A lot of people are saying these things. Where are we at? What happened with these comments? These comments where Trump was talking about the auto industry, and you've got to be very, very careful, because if you don't have your wording exactly correct, and it's hard because you're doing live speeches and stuff like that, and Trump is someone that kind of improvises all the time. You have a situation now with the media taking things out of context, and you just got to say that a lot of people, even on X, were doing the community and checking the community notes. And I think you're going to talk about David Sachs and Elon Musk asking for more people to step up on that, because I think the silly season basically has started. Go ahead, talk to me.
Yeah, I do think that the silly season has begun, and part of the reason why it looks to have begun is, as you mentioned, the State of the Union address didn't really give President Biden any bounce. And I think that they were counting on that. And so he is still trailing in just about every poll out there, every national poll, against President Trump. And so what do you do? How do you kickstart things? What do you kind of grab onto? And certainly, as you mentioned, the media and the Biden campaign grabbed onto Trump's comments at the rally in Dayton, Ohio, this on Saturday. Look, I think it was overblown. I don't think there's any question about that. I think, as you mentioned, it was taken out of context. There's actually several comments, I think, that were taken out of context from that. I do think there's certainly a big push on it, starting like Saturday night into all of Sunday, and it certainly worked its way through today. I do think it's starting to slow down. Have seen people such as Mike Pence and Adam Kinzinger, neither of whom are the biggest Trump fans in the world, basically say, yeah, it's kind of like, I think it was about cars. Like, let's not try to make this into something that it wasn't. And so there are people still trying to kind of extend the play on it. But I do think I think it's starting to ramp down. And look, I just think it shows a weakness in Biden's campaign and in the Democratic position, because what I think they're trying to avoid is having an election that's basically a referendum on how President Biden has performed
Yeah.
in the last several years.
Well, and as you said, before, and we talked off air and stuff like that, the media was using the same kind of language in response to Trump and Trump allies cleaning out the RNC. They were saying there's the same thing. Oh, it's a bloodbath of the RNC. Well, so you're using the same headlines. This is a term, a colloquial phrase, a term of art, if you will, something that's used, all the time in literature, in press and stuff like that. I'm not, whatever, they're trying to overhype everything. And that's what it is. And I mean, Trump is talking about, and here's the other thing too. It sort of illustrates, if you will, a lack of compassion and a lack of understanding of middle class out there and the workers out there and the working class out there. And here's where I'm going with that. We've had Mika Brzezinski and others recently talking about white rural rage and all this type of stuff and everything. It's like, dude, and then, or trying to excuse, what's going on with the border and everything like that. And look, we've had Tyson Foods. Tyson Foods has just said, hey, they closed the plant, 1,200 jobs, American jobs for American workers gone, but they have gone to a special event or something like, I don't know. They've been doing some outreach to hire migrants and saying something like, oh, they're loyal and something like it's outrageous, and trying to hire like tens of thousands of them, allegedly, reportedly. I'm not alleging anything, but this is what I recall based upon my recollection of a news article out there. And I mean, this is something where it's like, this is really devastating for American workers out there. And when you combine these things of looking at the auto industry, this is the kind of the theme of the show. There's been this big push, whether it's DEI, ESG, woke, fill in the blank, right? Misinformation, disinformation, censorship, the censorship, media complex, if you will, to the detriment of the regular person. And now you've got Trump talking about, hey, you guys have pushed Green New Deal. You've pushed this EV stuff really hard. You've got NAFTA in there, the free trade stuff, and that's Republicans, U.S. Chamber of Commerce, that's all that type of stuff. Fine. So what the Chinese have done is they've basically built these factories right in Mexico. And I think something like 40% of manufacturing, auto manufacturing is done, I don't know, for North America is done in Mexico now. I may have that stat completely wrong, but there's some percentage. And now you've got BYD, Tesla, you've got you've got some Chinese EV manufacturers. You're pushing a lot of these companies are saying, auto companies are saying, hey, we're going to be all electric by whatever, fill in the blank, 2025, 2026, 2030. You've got the government stuff, the different mandates out there. You've got California that are saying, hey, no more ICE engines, internal combustion engines, other places in Europe. And this is about to devastate the American worker and the U.S. auto market. But meanwhile, the consumer, much like Marvel movies and stuff like that, is saying, hey, we don't want it. We don't want it. There's only 8%, 10% of the market that is EV. And of that, Tesla has over half of that. But BYD has passed Tesla globally. Tesla stock has taken some shots. A lot of people are going after Elon for a variety of reasons. And when you clear the smoke on all this type of stuff, it's the elites trying to force and tell the regular American voter, American worker what to do, and people are tired of it, and Trump is trying to stand up for them. That is, I think, the overarching theme here. Do you agree with that?
I do. And I almost look at it as like an analogy. It's almost like a worldwide analogy of when Twitter was under the Twitter files regime.
Yes.
Which was kind of a fake make-believe, almost like the Truman Show movie that was not real. And so they were kind of trying to create a reality that didn't really exist. And so I do think that's what I agree with you in that that's what the elites seem to be trying to do. Drive an EV, eat this food, don't do this. You must watch this movie. You can't watch this. You can't do this. And people don't want, they're just not, that's not how people feel. I mean, look, let's be honest. I don't think, a lot of people aren't like that in general. But I think right now at this period in time, when there's been so much kind of economic struggle, everything happening with the border and all, people just don't want to, I don't think they're satisfied with the status quo. And so even though there's a push from the establishment, of course, to reelect the current administration, people just aren't going for it. And so because of that, you're seeing increasingly, as we said with this coverage of the Trump remarks, kind of increasingly desperate, almost panicked coverage and attempts to kind of sway voters. And I just don't think it's going to work. I just don't see it. I just saw something a few minutes ago when we were preparing remarks from the Richard Barris, the pollster, on his podcast today, basically where he said, look, there's not a significant economic recovery between now and the election. He just can't see how Biden's going to win.
I agree with that.
And I made a post about that saying, I think it's too late. Because I can tell you right now, Brian
that's also,
Mapp,
I think I agree with you, actually. I mean, I think it's and I'm not to interrupt you, but I think there's very quickly, the reason why I agree with you, I mean, I understand what he's saying, but I agree with you more, and I think you're right, is traditionally, if you don't fix the economy, and the economy's bad by like summer of election year, like it's over, like you've got to about Q2, and then it's baked in. I think this is very different because whether it's relationships, whether it's, men's issues, whether it's pandemic stuff and lockdown policies and DEI and ESG and the border and listen, we're all for diversity, freedom, peace, love, opportunity, equality for everyone. But when you have a situation basically where if you don't agree with this, if you're not on our side, we're going to punk you. And in fact, there's a USAID study out there, Freedom of Information Act thing that just came out. I forget who. I think it was Tom Fitton's group and stuff like that did that filed a lawsuit for freedom of information. It was some document out there saying, hey, let's get to the advertisers. Let's silence these other voices on the internet. Let's not deplatforming type of activity. People have seen this whole range of things where you've got government and the Democrats and the media that are just punking out, and let alone, whether it's Patrick Bet-David, whether it's to some small extent, not really, but I mean, it's more like Elon Musk and Russell Brand and, on down the line. They're going after Tate again. You've got this whole litany, Tucker Carlson, this whole litany of people that they're going after. And people will basically see enough of this, like beyond the economics. Usually it's the economy, stupid, right? Clinton and Carville. But beyond the economics, people have seen the hand of the Democrats, have seen what they're about. The unmasking has happened, and they're done, dude. They're done. It's like Vivek holding up the sign about Nikki Haley. Nikki equals corrupt. People are done with that. I mean, Mike Pence, you were vice president. Donald Trump made you vice president. Everyone said, oh yeah, we're going to support a Republican, whoever the nominee is, thinking that they were going to make the MAGA voters, the Trump people. You got to vote for the insider when we do the splitter strategy or whatever it's going to be. And now it's Trump, and they're like, oh no, we can't do that. Oh, Nikki Haley, oh, you got to come, you got to earn the vote, the Nikki Haley vote. I mean, it's like, what, dude? People are done with this, bro. People have seen it. And it's like, and once you see this overreach, this force, this government and the media complex and the elites, it's really the elites versus the people, as it's really what it is. You can't unsee it. Is that kind of what you're getting at, Paul?
Yeah, that's part of it. I mean, there's no question. I think that is the backdrop to everything. is the heavy-handedness, and people are really tired of that. I mean, I see it constantly on X. Another thing is this economic burden is cumulative. Even if things started recovering, the inflation's still high. I mean, you are not going to take down that inflation, that cumulative inflation, in 8 months. It's just not going to happen. And so there's kind of a built up displeasure with how things have been. And this inflation's been like this for years now. And I think one of the toughest things for Biden, even if things started to recover a little bit, people can compare things to where they were 4 years ago. They were a lot better. So if he was running against somebody who had never been president before, maybe it'd be different. But you're running against somebody who had one of the greatest economies ever and who left office with things much better than they are right now. And Biden's got to deal with that. And so even if things start to somewhat improve, you're not going to get those things. I don't think you're not going to get those variables to where they need to be before November.
I agree with you. I don't think you're going to be able to get it there by November. I think there's definitely big issues. And, I do think that now it's also part, people just want to be free, dude. You know what I mean? Like I think that I think both of them are, it's just incompatible, right? And so I'm trying to say three things at once. I agree with you. You can't change the economy that fast. There's major destruction that has happened in terms of the policies. Green New Deal, shutting off gas, oil and gas production, all these things, right? That's one. So on the economy thing, yes, and I don't think you can change that fast. Like trying to, adjust a big, tanker or the Titanic. You can't move it on a dime. All right. The second part of it is, I think that people want to be free. People, in Western democracies, the constitutional republic, whatever, want to be free. And it's gotten too feudalistic. It's gotten too much Hunger Games. It's gotten all these things. And it just goes against, whether it's the farmers in Germany or Denmark, or, you see these things all over the world, and certainly here in America, what kind of people understand, like, what kind of America do you want to be part of, regardless of money. So you have people like, this reminds me of the spaces that, Vivek and Elon was on, and we've been talking about this for a long time. Like, hey, you know what? Take all my money, but I'm going to stand up for what's right, because we care about, this country and our children and the future, and having, a beacon of a place of freedom in the world, very, very important. And the third thing I think that's very much related to that, but also its own distinct thing, in my opinion, is what we've been saying for a long time, which is, 2023 was the year of reality, and 2024 is the revenge of reality. You can't push movies that people don't want to see. You can, but when you overspend, it's just like a lot of these news agencies, they don't make money. Many of them don't make money, but hey, you have to do it. You have to fund this. No, you're propaganda. Like, you're not something that people want to see. People don't see value in it. They're not tuning in, or they're paying for, or whatever it is. And, when you say, hey, fill in the blank, like, we don't care about weight classes. Anyone should be able to wrestle or do MMA or box with anyone else. Well, no, weight classes matter. Okay. You can say that it doesn't matter, but the reality is it matters. Right. And then, and we're seeing the NCAA walking back now on, some of this, some of these things that they had, some stances they had in competition in regards to women's sports and stuff like that, because, reality has asserted itself. Okay. And no different than me. We'll talk about this with Mike Tyson, right? Well, Mike Tyson was the baddest man on the planet when he was young. He's no longer young. And now he's facing I was a 4-time national champion. I was third in the world. I was crazy strong. I'm not that guy anymore. I can't do it anymore. Okay. I can still go to a limited extent, but at some risk. right? I mean, yeah, I'm stronger than normal, obviously, but I mean, I'm not what I was, and Mike Tyson is not what he was, and it's going to be very interesting. I don't know. I need to see more. I still think I like him in that Jake Paul fight, but there's a lot of people that don't want to see that Jake Paul fight, and so you can't ignore reality. When you're Bud Light and you just straight up punk out your customers, that is not a good plan. That is not a good business model. And on and on. And similarly, if you're some of these institutions and you're putting, educational institutions, and you're putting, Harvard or something like that, and you're putting people in place with maybe limited limited publications, and now some plagiarism questions and stuff like that. I mean, that's problematic. And I've seen on I forget who the podcast was. I want to give credit to it. There was this it wasn't Joker. Who was? I'm blanking. A former special operator, I think a Delta Force dude, was talking about how the military is softening up. When you do that and you lower standards, or you wait, or you push certain things, I mean, there's going to be a reaction to what you're doing. I mean, and again, it's that old saying, right? I mean, hard times make, about basically like when things are too easy, people get too soft. When things get tougher, then people get tougher and stuff like that. Now, nobody wants to think life to be tough, but life is kind of tough sometimes. And there's a reality to what it is. And, I have problems. I can't get into this now because there's way too much to do. But, I've been thinking about, some of the, red pill stuff and manosphere stuff. And we touch on that, and it's very real and it's very much of a problem. And there's a lot of policies that are not pro-family right now. But there's a lot of things I disagree with the manosphere, or they try to overhype things or whatever. And look, I mean, you have to do things that are pro-family, that are, pro-children, and I can't really even get too specific in it, but the bottom line is that reality is always going to win. I can think I can surf a tsunami, but guess what? I can't. It's not going to work out. I'm not going to win. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what, whatever, you know what I mean? Fill in the blank. And I think that there's too many agendas that are being pushed, and they're being forced down people's throats, and it's just not going to work. And I think what we've seen with, whether it was Miami Tech or venture capital, or more broadly, I guess, and some of these movies and stuff like that, like, hey, we're just gonna, if it's this agenda, it's good. We're gonna push this agenda, and you have to like it, and you have to buy it, and you have to fund it, and it's like, no, dude, that doesn't work. And then you had these lazy girl jobs and stuff like that, and you had people saying, oh, my life at Facebook, and I get to 2 lunches and massage and chilling and stuff like that, and you think you're gonna make 6 figures plus, or $250,000 doing that? You think that's sustainable? That's insane. Google makes this Gemini AI, and we're sorry. It's like, and then you hear from people, that it's basically broken in there. Now, Gemini AI might have some kind of partnership with Apple phones and Siri. Like, dude, we don't need any of that. I mean, listen, and we love, we love, partner with YouTube, and we love YouTube and everything like that. But I mean, if you see a lot of these things out there, I didn't expect to be a mega hit on YouTube. I didn't expect YouTube to be throwing a lot of our stuff on the front page and stuff like that. And that's why you have competitors like Rumble, and you have Elon doing X and different things like that. You can't, I don't care what regime it is. We can look all through history. You just can't hold people down forever. You can't tell people like, hey, instead of walking on your legs, just walk on your hands. Because that's really better. Because, or whatever it is. It's just, that doesn't work that way. You know what I'm saying? So anyway, I don't know if I'm being a little bit too vague and esoteric here, Paul, but what are your comments on that?
Yeah, look, I think there is a lot of that going on. I think you said there are concerns about just overall freedom and freedom of choice, and to be able to do what you want and not do what people are trying to force you to do or force you to watch or so forth, or you can't write this on social media. Look, I mean, coming back with the election and stuff, I think there's three main problems for Biden. Number one is the economy. Number two is the border, and number three is what you're just talking about, which is the issue of freedom and kind of self determination versus companies, corporations, government, and so forth, trying to kind of nudge you into a path that they might want you to take that you just don't want to take. And that you said you can't walk on your hands forever. That's not going to work. And I think for a lot of people, they believe they are being pushed towards that and they don't want to do it anymore.
Well,
and so I think that there's a desire to change.
Yeah, and just real quick, I mean, and when you think about it, what does that really say when we're saying it like that? And we'll take the breaks here, the normal breaks here. So we'll take a super short break at the 29-minute mark and stuff. What people are saying by that, what that really means is we don't trust the people. We don't trust you. We don't trust you to make a decision, right? I mean, and that's insane. So whether that's like, hey, we can't, cast Ken as whatever. And I didn't watch the movie. I'm just going off the what happened at the Oscars, and I'm going off of the movie, of the video and stuff like that. And Ryan Gosling did an amazing job, and I think he definitely played it up and everything like that. And he's married with kids to Eva Mendes, but you're gonna cast Ken as maybe or at least the video. At least the video comes off as a little ambiguous. Is he totally straight? We don't know, or maybe we're gonna gender like dude. Okay, that's like we're all for everybody. Peace, love, freedom, opportunity, equality for everyone. But that's not whatever percentage it is, it's not the majority. Okay. I don't know. I'm not a scientist. I don't care. You know what I mean? And, biology is biology. That's what's up. Okay. The party of science shows the science doesn't want to be too scientific on certain things. And doesn't want people to be able to choose their own thing. And so, for instance, like if you leave it to people to choose on their own, the majority of people, viewers in America, are not going to watch PBS. They're going to watch the NFL. They're not going to watch PBS. They're going to watch UFC. They're not going to want to watch, I don't know, whatever, piano competition. They might want to watch, the next version of Baywatch. I don't know, whatever, or what, fill in the blank, Real Housewives or something. I don't know. You know what I mean? Like, and I don't watch tons of TV, but it's like, when people are left to choose on their own, they want certain things. Part of the thing with the manosphere stuff is, hey, the expectations are so insane now for men. You have to have 6 figures, 6-pack, 6 foot tall. And I think that that's actually undershooting what's actually being out there. Some of the money figures are just astronomical. But a lot of this is media and social media and what the perceived availability and perceived market value. And again, I don't want to get too, and a lot of this stuff is a little bit too, I can't sign on to it, and I have my own criticisms. And that's just a long thing. We're not going to get too deep in it. But it does illustrate some certain things. Whereas basically that, part of the manosphere's commentary, I think, is, hey, you've got these quote unquote 3s, 5s, 6s, whatever you want to call it, on a 1 to 10s, thinking that they're going to be with 10s on the other side, and they have to do everything, and basically not the, it's the whole what do you bring to the table thing. And I think, and I have huge problems with all of this, and this is a longer conversation. Maybe I'll touch on it in the next segment, maybe not. We have so much other stuff to do. But ultimately, you're having failed relationships right now. Failed families, broken up families, failed relationships, stuff like that. It's a huge problem. And reality is starting to intrude here because this is not sustainable. I'll get into that. We're going to have to take a break right now. We'll come back. We'll talk a little bit more about it. You're listening to John D. Villarreal Radio Show here on Newstalk 1040 and live on LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, and X. Be right back. Okay, we're back on the John D. Villarreal Radio Show here on Newstalk 1040, live on LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, and X, all over the greater Tampa Bay area. If you're listening to this on the radio, this is a taped show. Had a little bit of technical difficulties on my computer and stuff like that, but anyway, I'm figuring it out, and we're doing it later tonight, which is now. Now we're live on LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, and X. But if you're hearing on the radio, it is a replay. And I got a little sucked into the whole manosphere stuff. And there's lots of shows out there, whether it's Fresh and Fit, Simply Pearl. There's so many different. And there's been a big brouhaha and kind of a back and forth, or heat fighting, if you will, between Shapiro and some of these people, and Ben Shapiro and the trad cons versus the manosphere. And I can't get too into any of it. I have a lot to say, but basically, the short story is this. I'm someone that thankfully has a successful marriage and has married once, married the same woman. She's fantastic. She's, has a tremendous capabilities and education, everything like that. And a fantastic daughter. Dated a lot before I got married and everything like that. And so I understand with the dating market, because I've been around professional athletes. I was a nerd. I've seen the gambit. And doesn't mean I know everything, and it's not like I got a PhD in this or anything like that. But I've got a lot of relationship experience, I think. And my take is, look, there's so much to say. At the end of the day, and this is the thing, right? You can't get mad at anybody. You don't hate the player, hate the game, if you will, right? And men. People want what they want, whether it's men, women, whatever. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter, what orientation. Doesn't matter whatever. Doesn't matter. People want what they want, right? And when you are, trying to do in relationships are driven primarily by biology, right? And human beings want to reproduce. That's what it is. People want the best they can get. That's what it is. There may be a misperception of what the market value is, or a misperception of what things, and then things are bound to correct. So the problem I have with some of the manosphere stuff is, and someone else said this too, and I had already come to this conclusion, stuff like that. I just didn't say it on air before, but they said it in a little bit different way, but I'll say it in my own way, is, you can't really get mad at either side, because both sides is an adaptation to whatever the current environment is. Before, you go to certain places and certain cultures, and they want people that or like Henry VIII and stuff like that. Like, if you were I'm gonna get this a little bit wrong, I'm sure, but anyway, there's some places where, like, hey, if you're big and voluptuous or something, or you're portly or stout or whatever like that, like somehow that was attractive, or wearing the wigs and the powdered wigs and the pale face, that was attractive. Things change, right? The standards change, the fashion changes, the different things, what's up, who's down, all those things change. But at the end of the day, people want to pair up and have relationships and continue the species, and that's not going to change. And you can say whatever, and you can try to, it's like Bill Maher had this thing. Hey, there's this explosion in, non-binary stuff or whatever. And, at some point, in 5 years, we'll all be, non-binary or whatever like that. Well, that's just not sustainable. It doesn't make sense. Nothing against anybody. We're all for everybody, right? But we're not. But leave the kids alone, in my opinion. You know what I'm saying? And and that's a whole. And I don't want to get into all that, but reality is reality, and reality will assert itself. And it's the same thing with economics. It's the same conversation, Paul, with the EVs and stuff like that. Hey, guess what? I don't want an EV. I don't care if you're giving me a big rebate. This and that. I don't want one, because I live in wherever, Alaska or some of these places where they don't work so well, or I'm too far away from a charging station, or fill in the blank, or it's too expensive. And it's like the central planning. How many times do we have to? It's the same comments, the same argument with government. Central planning doesn't work. Writ large, en masse, it doesn't work. And we come back to the same thing where you have the experts or the Ivy League, towers, or the academics that think they know better and trying to force everybody, and it just doesn't work that way. So if you leave people to their own devices, they're going to want to watch Rambo more than they're going to want to watch Masterpiece Theater. Do you agree with that?
I do agree with that. And look, I mean, that is a big part, I think, of what is going on in the culture right now. What is going on in terms of politics? People feel like, I think there are many people who believe that the one side of things, or maybe, on the left right now, or the government is trying to kind of steer those conversations and those kinds of choices more than a lot of people would like them to. This is, again, this is getting into the Twitter files, getting into social media control, which is now before the Supreme Court, Missouri versus Biden, on the government telling social media what to and to not allow. And it's a big free speech concern. It's a big freedom of lifestyle concern, how you want to live. So I do think that is something that is a larger issue, kind of overshadowing things right now, overshadowing the election, overshadowing many things. And I think this is more of a issue than it has been in a long time. I think there are real concerns now with kind of how much control some of these various entities are trying to have: government, entertainment, and so forth. As you said, we're in an era now, and we talked about this in preparation for the show, we're in an era now where if you don't like what these entertainment studios put out, they blame you. They try to tell you that you're the problem. Rather than correcting or altering their offerings, they try to force you to watch something you don't want to watch. And as you said, in relation to relationships, at some point it simply doesn't work anymore. And as you said, the revenge of reality. At some point, all of this doesn't make sense any longer, and people don't want to do it anymore. And I think those are the kind of headwinds that President Biden and the Democrats are kind of facing right now. So I think people are just kind of like fed up with all of this and want to go back to kind of a moment in time where it just wasn't so much of a thing. It just wasn't so much of a thing. In other words, if you want to do what you want to do, go do it. But I don't want to do it. So don't try to make me do it. And I think people feel like there's too much of that going on right now.
Yeah. And again, the thing is that like, and again, the manosphere would say like, oh, men have it, harder than women and stuff like that. And then obviously feminists have a different take on that. And I don't want to get into that. I really feel like, as we said, like each side has their own challenges. Each side has their own, pros and cons and different things like that. And, I think life's hard for everybody, honestly. You know what I mean? And some things are easier and some things are harder and all that. And so, but ultimately, when you sell the lie, if you will, that 95% of the women out there can get the top 1% or 0.1% of the men out there, and that everyone's a boss and a queen or king or this and that, whatever, and you can tell short dudes they're short kings and this and that, whatever. And listen, I mean, it's a little near and dear to my heart. I mean, my wife makes fun of me for my height and stuff like that. I'm taller than her, but I'm not tall enough. You know what I mean? And I'm the shortest in my family and stuff. And other than my sister Christina, and our family's like tall. I'm above average, but I mean, every other guy in the family is well above 6 foot, and I'm not. My sister's well above 6 foot. Like she's who knows why she says 6'1.5". We think 6'3". She's way up there, and it's so I can sit here and say, okay, like if I have all these other accolades and stuff like that, you take all that away, and not even now. I mean, now I'm like I've got the dad bod and all that type of stuff. But let's take everything. If I'm back, fill in the blank. If I'm just average John with my height, at 5'10", and am I going to be able to go and rock a date with a 6'1" supermodel? Might be hard. It could be pretty hard. Could be pretty tough. And the thing is anyone in the known universe would understand that. And you could say that's right. You could say that's wrong. You could say whatever you want to say. But the problem of it is we've convinced now so many American women, and this is the passport bro thing and everything. And I'm not taking anything up with that. I'm not taking any sides. I'm just going to get to a point here that basically they can do that that 5s or 10s and all this type of stuff that like again, that 95% of the women can get 0.1% of the men or 1% of the men. It's just not, that's not reality right now. The thing of it is, and it's the old, and then it's about, and then the other thing is if anything's wrong with the marriage, if anything's wrong with the relationship, if he's not bringing in 6 figures and taking care of the kids and cleaning and doing half the household work and all this other stuff, oh girl, you got to divorce him. Forget that. Take half his money. If someone's better, there's always a better deal, and that's not true. And the studies have shown that it's terrible for the kids. And that the grass isn't greener, and that the more relationships, the more marriages you're in, the more likely you are to get divorced and all this stuff. And it just becomes this snowballing thing. And so we're lying to ourselves. It's not so much men versus women, it's us, or women versus men, it's us versus us. It is us versus the elite, if you will, and at least in the messaging, it is definitely Hollywood and Madison Avenue, this propaganda against people, because that's not where it's at. And, I think, and this is a much longer discussion, and a lot of I would submit to you that if I read about evolutionary biology a long time, psychology a long time ago. If you believe in that or some of that, you can see a lot of the criticisms that the manosphere has on modern dating and women. You would say, hey, listen, this is probably goes back to some natural adaptations or whatever. There's probably a logical reason for it. But if the issues that I think we're facing now with social media and all the other stuff, I think is a somewhat similar issue that we face with prepared food and ice cream and stuff like that. 200 years ago, you wouldn't have any of this stuff, or very, very little of it. Okay. You had to go out there. I mean, heck, Paul and I, we, back in the not that distant past, grew up on a farm. You go out there and you work, you go to school, you had to walk to the, a quarter mile, whatever. And all those stories, all true, to the bus stop, you got physical labor. You had to go do your work. You didn't have an overabundance of food. But even then, I mean, we had it soft compared to our granddad and grandparents and their grandparents and stuff like that. But 300 years ago, there was none of this stuff, right? Now you can sit here, literally not work, get your government money or help from the family or whatever it is, order your food, have it dropped off, have your refrigerator stacked with ice cream, and just, blow yourself, just overeat. Nothing against people that are, again, we're all for everyone. We're not casting any aspersions or anything like that. And so, but that's not healthy for you. So, again, with great power comes great responsibility. You have to be more disciplined now. I got to be disciplined and go to the gym. If I don't go to the gym, it's not going to be good. Now, it doesn't mean I'm going to go power lift or anything like that, but I have to just, I have to do what I can at my age, my injuries, to be in shape. I have to make the right decisions and right choices in relationships to try to be in a better place, and people want all of the benefits, Paul, with no responsibilities. And they think it's, it's this person's fault, it's that person's fault, it's this side, it's that side. I do think that we've been unduly harsh on men. I think that some people would make the point that we went from a patriarchy to a matriarchy. I don't know. I think that there is a propaganda thing going on there, and I think that that elites like to control. I think there's some of that going on. But I also think that you have to take a larger picture, and it's more of a complex thing. And I'm sure we'll talk about some of this if we get to the Israel thing. And so it is to say that when you look at, so, and I don't want to I got to be a little bit careful how I want to say this. We got about 3 or 4 minutes left. The whole Disney thing and the MCU and stuff like that, there's certain archetypes that, let me put it another way. There's stories that have worked forever, and there's a reason why they've worked forever, right? Now, if you go way back in ancient times, you had the Roman gods and the Greek gods and the North gods. You had men, you had women, it was pretty egalitarian, I think, in that respect, right? And the myth of the Amazons and all that type of stuff. So I think that's always been there. But at the same time, I would also, and I got to be very careful. I don't want to be misquoted, and again, I reserve the right to revise and amend because I might get this a little bit wrong as well. But if women can do everything, I don't want to say that. Let me go in a different way. You take a modern woman who's got a PhD from Harvard and an MBA from Stanford and stuff like that, who's running a big company, who's an Olympic athlete, who's super fit, who's doing it. What kind of man does she want? Does it matter if he makes money or not? I mean, I don't know. I'm just literally asking an open question there. And I don't think one size fits all. I think different people are different. I mean, some people just want someone to talk to. Some people don't want to have kids. I mean, there's all kinds of different, and that's the point. You should be able to choose whatever you want to do. But I think that we've boxed ourselves into this is the manosphere's criticism, right? Critique, right? We put ourselves in this situation where, we expect that everyone's going to get everything. And in a relationship that, men have to be that much better, that much whatever. And it almost becomes on both sides very transactional instead of something that's religious based or relationship based. And I think their criticisms of in the trad cons would say, hey, well, if you're religious and stuff like that, that addresses some of this. And the other people say, well, you're you just think that that all makes it all better. And anyway, this is a very much longer discussion here. Paul, we got about a minute here. You want to say something? Obviously, we'll pick you up immediately after the break.
Yeah, look, I mean, things have changed a lot, and they're still in a very great flux. Part of it because of the technology, part of it because of changing kind of social positioning, which is some of what we're talking about, like what is being put out there, or what entertainment puts out there, or what kind of the government pushes, or whatever. And look, there's a lot of questions. As you said, things like evolutionary psychology, these are long-term things over thousands and hundreds of thousands of years. They don't change quickly. And so, as you said, you're not going to walk on your hands. That's not the way things are designed to be. And so, I think there's a certain a truth to that maybe that has to be kind of re-examined.
We'll pick it up here after the other end of the break. We're going to take a quick break right now. You listen to the John D. Villarreal Radio Show here on Newstalk 1040, live on LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, and X. Be right back. Okay, we're back here now on YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, and X. This is John D. Villarreal Radio Show here on Newstalk 1040, Greater Tampa Bay area. We were talking about relationships and stuff. And I'll give you a perfect, for instance. And one of the things that the Manosphere talks about is, and again, I'm just putting some things out there just for discussion point. I have a lot of problems with the Manosphere. I have problems with it with I think this is a much deeper, complex subjects, but I understand some of the criticisms definitely I think are valid, or at least bring up valid points to think about. I don't necessarily agree with, there's a lot I don't agree with, whatever. I'm not condoning everything. But, you know, it's, how do we say this? The question is, how do you have a successful relationship today? You know, what are the expectations, and how do you make it all work? Now, Paul, you were in the middle of some comments, and let me tee you up again, because I don't want to interrupt you. You had some comments about some of this relationship stuff.
Yeah, look, what I was saying was there is, or has been, there's been a significant acceleration kind of change of roles or kind of concepts or how things are looked at, whatever you want to call it, feminism, gender studies, just gender theory, etc. Over the last, I don't know, 10 to 15 years, there's been a great kind of acceleration of that, which personally, I don't really have a big problem with at all. However, what we're talking about when we talk about like evolutionary psychology, evolutionary biology, different things, this is tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of years. And so you have to imagine that trying to kind of alter that in such a very short span of time is going to provide a lot of challenges. And in some ways, I mean, you know, is that kind of, you know, is that how things are designed to be? And like I said, it doesn't matter to me personally what people do or how they do it.
Right.
Now, again, I mean, you know, so it's not whatever, but just looking at it logically, or kind of the way things are developed and the purpose of how they were developed or why they were developed for particular reasons or purposes, or what we think the purposes are, you know, then you come into real questions. As you said, I mean, how do you perpetuate the species? How do you, you know, how do these things work? And so I think there are, I think sometimes with some of these things you run into walls, and you have to look at things kind of honestly and logically when that happens.
Yeah, and I think that, like, you know, here's the thing. A lot of women will say, and again, I'm going to be this is the manosphere type of stuff, but you know, hey, we want a nice guy, but then, you know, a nice guy you can kind of walk on all over, or you like the bad boy or something. These are the traditional archetypes, right? And again, I'm not saying I agree with all this, but I'm saying that this is some of the criticisms. And, you know, being nice is a sort of adaptation, you know, because now, if you're genuinely nice, obviously I think it's good to be nice. And I'm not saying it's not good to be nice, but I'm saying that some people are artificially nice, or it's an adaptation because you need to socially get along because you're not strong enough or competitive enough or whatever, you know, on your own. And this is kind of the alpha male versus sigma male. You know, alpha male has to be with a group and lead a group. You know, sigma male or sigma person, doesn't matter. This is the, you know, it could be men, women, doesn't matter. The alpha, the sigma can kind of do their own thing by themselves, right? The lone wolf type of deal. And you know, that's sort of been more my thing. You know what I mean? Like I, you know, I can lead teams and do all that. I've done that very effectively. At the same time, like, I'm totally happy and perfectly capable of doing my own thing, but I have high horsepower to do that. And so if you're going to get married, like, what are you looking for? Right? I mean, what kind of husband do you want? Are you trying to get married for long term? Oh yeah. Okay. Well, what do you expect them to do? And are you going to have your super job when you have a 1-year-old baby? Maybe not. I don't know. Maybe you change your mind. Maybe you have to step out for a little bit. Maybe the husband stays home. Is it cool if would you be totally cool if you're out there making the money and the husband stays home, or what, like you have to think these things through and just try to be honest with yourself. And what you think you want is maybe not what you actually want. And it's very easy to get fooled. And it's not helpful when we've got this stuff from the media with all the propaganda and stuff like that. And so I think that people have to really think and reflect. And what's interesting about today's day and age, even though it is problematic, is we have tremendous amounts of data now from the dating apps and different things like that about what people are choosing, right? And reality does set in. And, I can just tell you, if you're not, if you're under a certain height and you don't have a certain amount of money and stuff like that, as a guy, it's rough, dude. It's rough. And the dating market is not a egalitarian market. If you believe in, the left believes in evolution, believe me, there's some Darwinian principles there. It is definitely survival of the fittest, if you will. It's picking winners, and you can understand why that might be. And so I think that, but beyond that, you just have to be realistic about what you're trying to do. And similarly for men and stuff like that. If you're only basing I don't care who you are. You could be whatever, Elon Musk or whatever. It doesn't matter. You can be super rich or stuff like that. If you're only going after, and I'm not saying him, I'm just saying any super rich person, no one specific. If you're only going after supermodels, who do you expect to hang out with you when you're, 7 years old and you're not that person anymore, or whatever it is, or what happens if you lose your money, or fill in the blank. And I remember watching this series. There's a documentary with Farmer's Wife or something like that on PBS. I don't know how I stumbled on it. I don't know. It's one of these things. Maybe I was traveling. I don't know. I don't know what it was, and it was basically people that was taking FHA loans or something like that, or some farming loans, and just barely scraping by, and they had 3-4 years of bad crops, stuff like that. And this woman, pretty good looking woman, whatever, she just hung in there. And they have kids, and just hung. I mean, and the thing is, like, back in the day, like, that was expected. Now it's like, oh, he didn't get what? He didn't get you a baby gift. He didn't give you a birthday month. He didn't take you to Monaco. Oh, you gotta leave him, girl. Someone, like, it's crazy. We've been talking a lot of relationships for a long time, but it basically does. It's a metaphor. It's something that everyone can understand. And honestly, Paul, it's a metaphor for everything else. Like, you can't force people to do EVs, particularly when the infrastructure and the technology isn't there for the majority of people. It's just not there. We want it to be there. It'd be great if it was there. And oh, by the way, it's maybe not as green as we think it's going to be. And if you do this, then you have China coming over here, and they're about ready to just crush the North American market. The auto industry, as in general, is feeling a lot of problems. Now, don't get confused. We're for peace, love, freedom, opportunity, equality for everybody. And I think that, we want everybody to be happy and have fulfill themselves and be successful and all this type of stuff. We're not saying that everyone's got to be the same by any stretch, and we're all for diversity and everything like that. But it is to say, separate point rather, that certain things just make sense, right? I mean, if I'm not physically, move away from dating. If I work for whatever, FedEx, UPS, everything like that, if I literally can't lift 10 pounds, if I've got myself in bad shape or I'm all too beat up, whatever like that, it's hard to do the job right. And as I said before, when it comes to a family, it comes to a relationship, there are certain jobs in it, right? Someone's having the baby, right? I mean, there's biology's biology. I don't want to get into that, but I mean, I would refer you to, biology anatomy books. Biology is biology, right? And if you're going to have a family, someone's having a baby, someone's raising the baby, someone's going to make the money, or back in the cave days, or farming days, go farm the field or go hunt the deer or whatever it is. Things need to get done. There are jobs to do. So how are you going to divide that up? Are you in your business, you're a relationship, your husband, wife, whatever, or whatever it is, you're in a relationship, but someone has to get things done. This is not revolutionary. Okay. And so who do you want to be in that partnership with? And, so anyway, I want to move on, but I mean, it's to me, it's the same thing, Paul. We've lived the difficulty of this conversation just shows how psychotic things have gotten. I mean, this conversation would have been so different 20 years ago. Well, that's good. Oh, hold on. Let me. You know what? I haven't done my voices here in a while. Let's bring some of that in here. We need a little something here. We need a little something here. Hold on a second. Give me a second here.
Well, that's good, John, because we need to make progress. And before it was terrible. It was all the isms. And the Republicans and the Trump voters are the worst. And we're never going back to that. And the Oscars were just the beginning. We're not even there yet. And it's unbelievable. We're going to get better and better and better. And it doesn't matter if nobody wants to watch our movies and nobody wants to work in these jobs and stuff like that. And we're right. And we're going to show you that we're right. And we're just going to shove it down your throat.
It's like, no, dude, that's not going to work, dude. And I think that's why, Paul, you're seeing like traditional Democrats that are just fleeing en masse because you're totally right about the economy and everything like that. But whether it's relationships, whether it's the Oscars, whether it's the Kenergy, whether it's and Ryan Gosling's great, whether it's but that the video, it's a little anyway, we talked about that. And here's the thing, people want, this is the other thing, goes back to sports. Back in my, nobody wants to see normal. People want to see something that they can aspire to, aspirational. Okay, there's very few men that aspire to that version of Ken. I'm just telling you what it is. You know what I mean? Like, dude, Ryan Gosling, great shape, everything like that, great hair, everything. But I mean, that version in the Oscars song and in the Barbie movie with that song, not aspirational. So you're not making it for men, right? I mean, do you agree or disagree with that, Paul?
I agree with that. I don't think that I don't think that movie, I will say, I did not see it. I do not think that movie was intended for men.
No,
primarily.
And props to Margot Robbie and props to the studio. I mean, very super successful, and it's fine. There's different movies for different audiences. It's totally cool. All right. I mean, if that was a girl power movie or whatever it was, I mean, that's fine. But that's not a version. And here's the thing. That's not a version of I would submit to you that I don't care. I mean, in reality, right, with the data from the dating apps and actually out there and this is I think this is a great point. There's one of the persons that was saying this too. It's a lot of people that are keyboard warriors and they look at all these videos and dating and stuff like that. You got to get out there. I mean, I'm not out there now, but I mean, back in the day when I would, go to gym clubs, this, that, whatever, meeting different people, like when you actually interact with women or men or whatever, in my case, women, then you find out. Then you find out what the real market is, what the reality is. It's like I can sit here. I was a champion. Look at all my trophies. I'm so tough. And then I go to the gym and I find out like, hey, John, you can't even bench 3 plates right now, which I can't. Then I find out the weights will tell me where I'm at real fast. That's where the reality check comes in. And so that version of Ken, I don't think very few men would aspire to, and I think not that many women would aspire to, other than Ryan Gosling, superstar. I mean, I'm talking about if take out Ryan Gosling, I'm just saying that version, not the superstar movie star, the rich dude who looks like $1 million, but just that version. That version, because let me tell you, I'll be careful what I say, but um, there's guys like that out there. You don't have a lot of women that are. I don't think you have a ton of women that are chasing them. You know what I'm saying? And so it's yeah, I'm gonna take that back. I'm gonna revise and extend that. I don't know. I can't. I know. I'm not able to fully make that point the way I want to make that point. So I'll take that back. But this is what I'm saying. You can propagandize people. You can tell, hey, 2025, no internal combustion engines, and the reality is we're not going to do it. It's not going to be there. If you don't produce any new cars, people are going to buy used cars. Like it just doesn't work. It just doesn't work for people. So I think it's that way with everything. We've been in this weird state, Paul, since the pandemic, if not before. Hey, you have to have DEI. Hey, if you're not super woke, you're not getting into law school, medical school, you're not getting a big job. You don't take this thing, we're going to fire you. You can't come to work. I mean, it's just been on down the road, and people are just done with it. They're tired of it. It's too much. That's what I'm trying to say, Paul. Do you agree with that? And I think it's gotten to the point where, yes, it's economics. Yes, it's competency. Yeah, it's a combination of this woke stuff, this forcing down people's throat, and reality being to the point of everything's breaking. The economy, relationships, job market, all these things. It's just too much. It's not working. And people are just like, enough of this. And that's why you're seeing huge realignment. I've been saying this for a while. Dick Morris is saying it now. James Carville is raising, some warnings. Newt Gingrich. There could be a massive realignment because of this, because people are like, enough. This is not what America's about. I think this is a super consequential election. And let's get into some of the numbers here. Do you agree with that? And let's start talking about, give me some updates on some of the polling.
Yeah, look, I do think that's a big part of it. I do think that that's part of why there is a realignment, particularly for minority voters coming to the Republican Party, because I do think that because of the shift leftward on some of these social matters, some of the people are, like Latinos, are religious, Catholic, and it just doesn't make sense to them. And so I do think that is a part of the picture of kind of the greater thing of what we are seeing. I think there's a number of different factors involved with the economic ones. I think the Democratic Party has shifted more from a party of like the working class towards more of a party of the coastal elites and the more well off. That's part of it. So there's a number of different things going on.
Well, can I say something super quick? Sorry, just real quick, because this will be a good point, I promise. It's exactly what we're talking about with the dating market. In a certain way. What you just said there, the coastal elites, is exactly right. You can't base a political party on 0.1% of the voters or 0.0% or 1% or whatever like that. That math doesn't work. You can't base a dating market. You can't base any of that stuff. Now, yeah, that may work for your celebrities. That may be so celebrities are 0.1%, 0.0%, whatever it is. Your donors can be that, but that does not work for your voters or relationships or everybody else. So you're doing these policies and you're appealing to this super, super small percentage of people, and it's breaking everything. Go ahead, Paul.
Yeah, it is. It is breaking things. And as you said, look, it's breaking both ways, which is to say that there are unrealistic standards, as you mentioned, about income, height, and these types of things. But on the other hand, because of the super efforts on inclusivity, which is a good concept, you get things like models for clothing lines that aren't aspirational. So they're not too high up the ladder. They might be somewhere on the ladder where people aren't aspiring to be in terms of the way they appear or their health.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Some of these models are not even what medical literature would describe as at a healthy body state. You know what I mean? I mean, listen, myself. I mean, I've got muscle and stuff like that, but my BMI is maybe not where it should be in the medical literature either. And so it's like, why are you pushing? It's fine to be inclusive. We want to be inclusive. We want everyone to feel good. But at the same time, like maybe it's not for, advertising agencies, private companies can do whatever they want to do, right? If that's what you think sells your product. But a lot of people, what they're finding out is that's not selling the product. Like Victoria's Secret or different things like that. They're going back to the supermodels, I think, because that wasn't selling the product, right? I mean, Dove, I don't know. I mean, soap, who knows? Maybe, I don't, you could see times where it could sell. But from a medical standpoint, from what we're putting out there, you know what I mean? Like, dude, there's healthy and then there's unhealthy. And that's just a medical fact. Dude. Now, the medicine, the science can change and evolve, but I mean, you can't sit here and tell me someone that is, like way above what their BMI should be is as healthy as someone that's in zone, all other things being equal. Continue, Paul.
So the point is, you're having both things. You're having both messages, which is only women want to be with the top 2% of men, this type of thing. And so everybody else can't compete or whatever like this. On the other hand, when you turn on the television, you can be way in a category that necessarily might not be healthy, and that's okay. And you could be a model. So there's all kinds of mixed messages going on. I think that confuses a lot of people. And, that's part of all this. There's I think just an uncertainty or an unclarity about a lot of things that I think wasn't the case until very, very recently in the past.
And going back to your point,
that is part of it.
I'm sorry. And going back to your point, when we talk to the border, which is I agree, super hot, big issue. Hey, guess what? We know you can't pay your rent. You're looking for a good school. You may not even have safety in your communities. Well, we have different policing standards, but we're just gonna house all these new people. As the Democrats like to say it, newcomers, right? The migrants, undocumented, illegal, whatever you want to call it, fill in the blank. These new migrants, we're gonna put them up in a hotel. We're gonna give them free health care. We're gonna give them free education. Now Tyson Foods or other people might try to hire him while we're firing American workers. I mean, it's like, what bizarro land are we living in here? This is insane, dude. This is insane. But that's where we're at. And it was the same criticisms I was having in some respects with Miami Tech. You're bringing in all this woke tech. It's like, show me the money. Meanwhile, rents went up, traffic went up, the existing people are getting displaced in terms of because a lot in South Florida, they've got some awesome schools, but they're private. Okay. Most of them most, if not all, are private, and there's only so many spots. And when big money comes in, they were just pushing from some of the reports I was reading in there. They were, there's a lot of competition for those spots. And we're seeing this, that was part of the recall thing, Paul, out in California with some of the supervisors and stuff like that, because they were changing some of the ways that you were getting in some of the schools out there, whether some of the great schools out there in San Francisco. And parents are like, enough of this. Like, it's too insane. And then you expect people to vote for you when you're punking them out? That's part of that's part of the problem that you're having now in the Democratic Party when it comes to the Israel issue, because you've got a large percentage of both sides that are in the Democratic Party, and obviously it's hard to square that circle, and they're not doing a great job of it right there. And now you've got Schumer, and so you're seeing that them trying to walk that tightrope. Where do you think that? I mean, we don't want to get too into this, but actually, it's worth examining very quickly here. Where do you think that ends up, Paul, with the Democrats? I think they're in a lose-lose at this point.
Yeah, I agree. I think it is a lose-lose situation with Israel. I just read a report that Biden spoke with Netanyahu either maybe today or yesterday, and essentially told him that he didn't think it was a good idea to go into Rafah, where, of course, Netanyahu has already said they are going to go into Rafah, My guess is that Biden is saying that for his base to tell him, well, I told him not to go in. So even if he goes in, I told him not to go in. And so it is a really, really difficult issue for the Democratic Party. And we're seeing that. And I don't think it's going to get better before the election. I do think there's a good chance that the major portion or the kind of most active portion of the conflict will be over by then. But there's already a lot of hard feelings. And I think that there is going to be some more, kind of the intense portion of the conflict still before the election. I don't know. I don't know how that's going to get resolved in a satisfactory fashion for everybody in the Democratic coalition. And look, I mean, if I were Biden, I'd be concerned about it too. But I don't know what you can do. I don't know how much you can do, because for Israel, in my opinion, as an outsider just observing, it to them seems like an existential issue. And after 10/7, I mean, you kind of understand that, or at least I do. So I don't know where it's going to end up, and I don't know how much control over it Biden has.
Yeah, no, I get it. I absolutely get that. There's no doubt about it. I think that it's going to continue to spiral out of control. And then again, this is where things have gotten. It's gotten to a point now where you have too many. This is the Democrat coalition. There's a lot of things that basically are, how do we say this? Are conflict and contradict each other. You know what I mean? Like, and it's, again, reality has taken a hold of this. You know what I mean? Like, I just feel like if you look at Canada, you look at you. I mean, you're looking at, and here's the other thing too. They say, right, Biden's not going to have to debate, and the state union's great, and all this. I mean, dude, I don't know how. We got 7 more months. We keep saying it. I mean, it's just, people want out of this. I can just tell you that right now. And I think even liberals and some Democrats are just resigned to thinking that Trump's going to win. But I guess maybe that's the point. Let's spin it. Let's shift gears a little bit. And we'll take a break here pretty soon, I guess. In probably about 10 minutes less. Where are we at with the polls right now? Let's just catch us up to speed on where we're at with this election right now. I've heard something like, Trump's up 5% or something like that. We're seeing him up on some of the this whole thing with Pence not endorsing. I mean, get us up to speed. You're involved in X. You're all over this. What's going on?
Okay, now I haven't looked at the RCP, Real Clear Politics poll, kind of the averages. My understanding of where things are at, kind of on average, is Trump's probably up about 3 points nationally. Now, a poll from his own pollster came out today, it's John McLaughlin, and had him up 6 points. But of course, that's just one data point. So I think Trump is ahead nationally, and he's also ahead in the battleground states. And for example, I mean, there's a service or a site on X called Decision Desk. They're very good. They're good at kind of following races, calling races. They have their own website, and on several of the battleground states, kind of they do their own poll of polls type of thing. I mean, like Arizona, Trump's up 5 points, and on average, not one poll, on average. In Pennsylvania, he's up 5 points. I mean, these are significant leads. I mean, big leads for these types of states. I mean, Pennsylvania usually comes down to a point and a half. If Trump is actually up 5 points, that's gigantic. I mean, so look, my own feeling is that this is going to be a very close race because of Joe Biden's appeal with older Americans in the Rust Belt. I think that's going to help him, pull him into a competitive situation, whereas any other Democrat you put in that situation would not be competitive. if you ran anybody else in the Democratic Party in Pennsylvania against Donald Trump, they would get crushed. They would get crushed. But Joe Biden, Scranton Joe, it's different. It's just a different vibe that he has here. And, I think that's part of his only shot. And I saw him out campaigning the last few days, kind of, starting to make the circuit. Look, he just has that kind of affable, goofy old guy that you can't be mad at thing. And they're just people who they attach to that. They can relate to that. So even though the policies aren't good and so on and so forth, maybe he isn't what he used to be. I don't know. There's just a certain Teflon aspect of that helps him. Well, particularly in these states.
We're going to talk more about it. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Let's take a quick break here. Go ahead real quick.
Just to wrap up, it's like, look, Trump's in the lead, but I expect it to be close, maybe closer than what it would be in other situations.
All right, we're going to take a super quick break right here. We'll be right back at you. This is the John D. Villarreal Radio Show here on Newstalk 1040 AM, live on LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, and X. We'll be right back at you. Hey everybody, what's going on? It's me, John D. Villarreal, here on the John D. Villarreal Radio Show here on Newstalk 1040 AM. Last segment, players, live on LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, and X. We've been talking about so many different things. We kind of get swerved in relationships and stuff again, and we're talking about, the economy. We're talking about EVs. We're talking about autos. I mean, it's kind of all over the place because there's so much news. There's so many things going on right here. We're joined by Paul F. Villarreal. He's doing a great job as usual, talking about some different things out there. We're doing the research, seeing what's going on. Listen, Trump is the official nominee. Let's talk about this. Pence, Nikki Haley, all this. We're going to get right into it because we've got about 24 minutes left here. What do you make of this thing with Pence and Nikki Haley and all that type of stuff? I mean, Paul, what do you make of that?
So my own personal feeling is that basically Mike Pence has been kind of summoned by the establishment to fill the role that what had been previously being played by Nikki Haley, which is essentially a Republican splitter, so to speak, although he's not. Haley was an actual candidate, and of course, Mike Pence is not. But someone that the establishment hopes will help pull Republican votes away from Donald Trump in the election. Kind of the, like Clinton's for McCain type of thing that operated in 2008. That's what I think Mike Pence is out there to do. That was all but said, I think, by people supporting Nikki Haley, including Democrat donors, that they were supporting her to kind of politically damage President Trump in the general election. That's what I think Mike Pence is out there to say, which is the good, pious, steadfast man, Mike Pence, golly darn, just can't seem to find it in himself to endorse Donald Trump, who he used to work for. And if he can endorse him, then maybe you have to think twice about voting for him.
That's
bizarre.
What
I think his purpose is.
Yeah, it's so bizarre when you look at Nikki Haley and you look at Mike Pence, who Trump gave him great positions and stuff, and now we're seeing this turn of events. What do you think this does for Mike Pence? What does he think this does for him?
I don't know if it does anything, to be quite honest with you. I mean, look, there's still that part. There's still the old Bush establishment party,
right?
Who, let's say, Pence fits in with them a lot better than he does with MAGA, in my personal opinion. Those, they're still hanging around. They're still, I think, hoping to regain ascendancy. And so I guess that Pence is thinking that he's making those people happy. Look, he isn't the only one. I mean, Bill Cassidy's out there saying he's not sure if he can support
Right.
Trump. Bill Cassidy, senator from Louisiana. Mike Rounds, the senator from South Dakota, I guess he said similar. You have to just start thinking, like, what are these people thinking? But I think within the bubble of DC and within the bubble of the old kind of country club establishment, Bush Republican gang, I guess that this makes sense to them. I guess that they think that somehow if they can just kind of
get rid of Trump, they get the party back. Is that the deal?
Yeah. And so in the short term, if they can just kind of create a little bit of doubt, maybe tick off a couple points from him, from his numbers, maybe he loses and they regain the party.
Or like Vivek was saying, whatever shit, it's basically the uniparty, and it basically just keeps the control and keeps the money flowing.
Yeah, and that's I think that's a really good point. I think that the Bush Republican establishment party, or that version of the party, is in some ways almost very similar to the current Democratic Party. I think that's why you see Bush got along well with the Obamas and stuff, because in some ways they're just it's just two sides of the same thing. And whereas MAGA is not that. MAGA is separate from that. And I think that Mike Pence is still, I think he might have his own ambitions. Maybe he wants to get back at Trump for what he thinks it was done wrong with him. But I think my guess is that him coming from a part of a family that's political, his brothers in politics, at least one of them, I think that this is something to try to curry favor with the establishment. And they're hoping that at some point when Trump goes away, and for them that they would imagine they hope that sooner rather than later, Pence earns some points. He's back in the mix. That's, I guess.
Very, very interesting. So how are we looking? I mean, part of this is Trump. So let's go through it. Where do you think we are? Do you think Trump's looking good, like he's going to win this election right now? Number one. What about the House? Number two, there was a retirement in the House. It makes the Republican majority a little bit closer. What is it looking like for the presidency, for the U.S. Senate, and the U.S. House?
So I looked at a betting market assessment today. I think the betting markets basically have Trump at like 52%, or one betting market, 52% Trump, Biden at 37%, and then whatever from there, Michelle Obama or whatever. I could see that. I think Trump is clearly the favorite at this point in time. I don't think it's a blowout or a breakaway, at least not yet. I think it could develop into that. I don't think we're there quite yet. But he's the favorite. Yeah, I think Trump is the favorite. And given all the circumstances, he's in very good position. As far as the Senate, I think given the nature of the map this time around, I think the Democrats have more seats to defend. It looks like they're almost certainly going to lose West Virginia, Joe Manchin's seat. I believe that would take the Republicans to 50. They're competing in Arizona. They're competing in some of these other states. I think there's a very real chance that the Republicans are going to control the Senate after the election. And I think that the probabilities are like them controlling that, or the predicted markets are maybe 75%. The House is in terms of odds is actually a little bit stilted more towards Democrats, although the redistricting that was done resulted in a net zero. So neither side gained from that. However, I have heard somebody who I thought made a good assessment, basically saying that structurally, seat by seat, Republicans are actually in a pretty decent position to retain the majority, although, of course, it is a small majority, and it might, if they are able to retain it, might remain small. As you said, Ken Buck just retired, just resigned, basically, or stepped aside before the end of his term, which surprised a lot of people. Ken Buck, Colorado, 4. Yeah, so the majority keeps narrowing for the Republicans, which I know has concerned a lot of people on the right. I hear that all the time on Twitter. But look, they still hold the gavel. They're still in command. And again, I do think if things start to turn more towards Trump, then of course I think that would certainly help down ballot. And Trump being on the ticket almost always helps Republicans down ballot as regards turnout. Now, people will say it also turns out more Dems, but on overall average, from the assessments that Rich Barris has done, it helps Republicans more. So I think Trump being on the actual ticket increases the chances that the Republicans will be able to hold the House and be able to take the Senate. So that's where I think things are at. Trump in favor for the White House, Republicans clearly favored, I think, in the Senate, and maybe Democrats slight favorite to retake the House.
And do you think that with this new RNC, this re-energized, hopefully RNC, do you think that they're ready to match or meet the Democrats or be competitive in the early election ballot stuff? I mean, do you feel like that sort of disadvantage is going to be addressed?
Well,
I think we lost Paul there. I think we lost him there for a little bit. We'll see if we can get him back. Something may have happened there. We'll give it a shot here. We'll see if we can grab him here. Hold on one second. Yep, there we go. Okay. Do we have you? Are you back, Paul?
Yeah, can you hear me?
I can. Go ahead.
Yeah, I don't know what happened. Sorry about that.
No
My phone, my network might have just cut off. So the new RNC is off to a good start. I believe they've already initiated two lawsuits against states, one of them being Nevada, basically to clean up their voter rolls, which is a way to help reduce fraud or potential fraud. I think Nevada, and I believe the other state is Michigan, or maybe they already cleaned up Michigan, something like this. So they are going after these swing states and working on multiple angles to kind of help, kind of like voter, protection. And they've also enlisted the help of a man named Scott Pressler, who many people on the right know who he is on Twitter. He's basically goes all over the country doing voter registrations. And he by himself registered know how many people. But he's also started basically being able to, he's enlisted more people to help him multiply his efforts. So I think he has been hired as kind of like the head person on doing early voting, ballot harvesting, and so forth. That's a big help. If they can multiply what he does by even, 10, that can make a massive difference, because I can tell you he's helped tremendously already in this state. Now, I will say this. So they have the right ideas. I think they've cut the fat at the RNC, so to speak, in terms of maybe some staff they didn't need, some projects they didn't need. They're working, I believe, with Charlie Kirk and Turning Point, kind of use their network to help them out in terms of getting out the vote, early voting, etc. The ideas are good. I think people are eager and ready to go. However, Democrats are far ahead in this. They are way ahead. They're super ahead of the game in that regard here in Pennsylvania. I want to say in 2022, I think they got like 600,000 more early votes in like the Senate race than the GOP did. That's an enormous deficit. Huge. And it's very systematized. My understanding is that they use groups in DC. They send out forms to voters here. Hey, are you registered? Do you have a mail-in ballot? Do you want a mail-in ballot? Then they set out canvassers to check with these people. So they have the money, they have the financing, they have the structure. And I don't know if the new RNC is going to be able to catch up with that by November. In fact, I don't think they will be able to catch up with that. However, they don't necessarily need to. If they can just make a dent into that lead, that might be enough. I think it will be enough. So that's the challenge. And look, I like what I see early on. I think that you have people that are very serious. The man who was leading the RNC, a guy named Michael Watley, who was the RNC chair of North Carolina, which is where Rich Barris, the pollster, lives, said, this guy is serious. He's legit. He's turned North Carolina more red, which apparently it is trending towards. This guy knows what he's doing. He can get the job done. Trump's worked with him before on Trump. He's worked with Trump on his campaign and transition team. So he's got that synergy. I'm optimistic. And so they're making good early moves. So I think a lot of people are hopeful. Because they're hopeful, the donations are starting to come back in that weren't there before. And it's definitely something to watch. But I like the early returns are good.
Nice. That definitely sounds good. Now, a lot of the lawfare stuff, if you will, alleged lawfare stuff on Trump, a lot of these cases are kind of again. Let me revise, extend that. Let me start again. A lot of these cases against Trump seem to be running into some trouble, if not falling apart. I mean, we've got stuff that happened. I don't want to cover it too much because it's been covered so much, but I mean, you've got the Bragg case. It seems to be delayed. The Fani Willis stuff, I guess the special DA or whatever, he had to resign. I mean, there's a lot of, or did resign. I mean, the judge had to, saying that one of the two has to go. There's a lot of stuff going on there. What do you make of some of those cases against Trump?
Okay, so let's go through them piece by piece. Number one, the classified documents case in Florida. I think that judge, from a Trump perspective, is a very neutral or a very neutral judge as compared to perhaps how Trump might feel about some of the other judges involved in some of his cases. She seems very inclined to give him a fair process, meaning give him enough time, take motions that are offered seriously, and so forth. I don't know if that case is going to go to trial before the election. Right now, I don't think that it's going to. Okay. That's just my sense of it. That's the first thing. The January 6th trial, Jack Smith in D.C. Apparently, there have been maneuvers by Jack Smith, special counsel, and by Judge Chutkan to possibly accelerate the trial, where maybe that trial is taking place right around the time of the election.
I love Byron York's column on that, like a month or so ago. Jack Smith is a special counsel. Jack Smith is in a hurry. He just can't say why.
Yeah, right. I mean, I do not think there will be right now. I don't think you're going to get a verdict in that case before the election. So you still could have Trump in court, having to not be on the campaign trail and having, various things coming out from the court. I don't think they're going to allow cameras in that courtroom. That's my understanding right now of that particular case. So then, of course, you'd be getting selective recaps of what happened. So that might be happening right around the time of the election. But I don't think you're going to get a verdict. And if you don't have a verdict, honestly, I don't know how much it's going to affect him, except taking him possibly off of the campaign trail. So that's two of them. The Georgia case, as you mentioned, Fani Willis, the prosecutor or whatever that she hired, her alleged boyfriend, Nathan Wade. Yes, the judge, McAfee, in that case ruled essentially one of the two of them had to leave the case, and Nathan Wade resigned from the case. So Fani Willis is still on the case. I don't know the time frame of that. Jeffrey Toobin, of all people, from CNN, their legal expert, who I don't believe is a big fan of Trump, essentially said the other day, this case is going nowhere. So I don't think that case is going to be resolved before the election. That's just my own personal feeling. And apparently that's what Jeffrey Toobin thinks. Finally, the Alvin Bragg case, the Stormy Daniels case, that is, I believe there was a ruling today where the judge, I can't remember the judge that's involved, I believe ruled that Trump cannot block the testimony of Stormy or Michael Cohen, but new documents have been submitted in that case, which has basically pushed back the trial date at least 30 days. The trial date was supposed to be in March. Now, of course, that would take it into April. I don't know if there's going to be more documents coming. The documents, Victoria Tensing and Joe DeGenova, both of them, I believe, former federal prosecutors, they were on, I think, Newsmax today and essentially said those documents are exculpatory to Trump. They're going to help Trump. So that's one thing right there. Maybe there's more documents coming in that can help him further. I think most legal experts think that case is kind of ridiculous, just to put it nicely. But they also understand somebody like Professor Dershowitz would say, I think this is a laughable case, but because it's in New York and his last name is Trump, yeah, he could get convicted. But I don't know. I think there's starting to be some doubt about whether that case is actually going to materialize. And a poll came out about that case today or in the last few days, essentially saying that people, by a plurality, don't care if he's convicted in that case. In other words, that's not going to affect their vote. And I can understand that since this case is years old, happened before he was president, and so forth, and is essentially, in my opinion, basically a campaign finance case. Maybe that was the original claim. Now it's been translated into like a bookkeeping case or something. This isn't a major case, in my opinion, even though it is being tried for felony. And just additionally, we have the New York civil trial, which of course was ruled against Trump, and he is appealing. And it was reported today that Trump has not or will not post like whatever it is, 450 million bond or whatever it is. Some people are upset about that. And I mean, I can understand. I mean, that's a lot of money to try to get him to post. But I've heard claims that he doesn't want to post it, that it's a strategy basically where he's that there's there's a reason why he's trying not to do that. And I think part of the reason is to kind of claim that this is an unreasonable amount of money for him to produce. So I don't think we've heard the last about that. I don't necessarily think that this is like a bad development for him, I guess is the easiest way to say it. So that's kind of a roundup on everything. And look, obviously this is costing a lot of time. It's costing a lot of money. Obviously there can be reputational hits with all this, but I think to a large degree, people have tuned a lot of this stuff out.
Yeah.
And there's so much of it, it just kind of becomes just white noise at a certain point. And I think we've hit a lot of that, particularly because there does not look like there's going to be any meaningful verdicts before the election.
Well, very quickly here, we got to wrap it up. We have President Obama over there meeting with Prime Minister Sunak over there in the UK. People are speculating on that. What do you think that's about?
Obviously I don't know. And as far as I know, nobody knows right now. My personal feeling is that if I had to guess, I think it'd probably be one of two topics, either Ukraine or my own personal thing is that it might have something to do with the situation in Israel. And that's pure speculation. I don't know, but
I could see the Israel thing for sure. I could see either one.
Yeah,
I could see either one.
It's
both.
That's what I think. Mm-hmm. Whatever was happening with that, it was clearly meant to be a high profile thing.
Very weird.
I mean, they wanted it covered.
Yeah, very weird.
We'll see.
Very, very strange. I mean, I think we have a current Secretary of State. I think we have a current president. So very interesting. Wouldn't they? I mean, and the same people that are maybe covering that. Would they be upset if Trump did that? I mean, I don't know. Anyway, listen, a lot to talk about here. We went all over the place because there's so much to talk about. But hopefully, we were able to at least, substantively develop the main overarching theme here. And I think that's, this is 2024 is the revenge of reality, and people are tired of being, pushed around and talked down to and condescended to and whatever. And I think that, reality is going to win. And I think right now you've seen a lot of people line up against, or line up, for Trump and others. And we'll see. And I think it's something that's sweeping the world. Interesting conversation, free speech, freedom, liberty, all that type of stuff. I'm wearing my freedom shirt today. So anyway, have a great week. This is John D. Villarreal for the John D. Villarreal Radio Show here on Newstalk 1040 AM and live on LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, and X. Appreciate Paul Villarreal joining us by phone, and you can go check out his big page over there on Twitter, which is awesome. Paul, very, very quickly, what's your page on Twitter?
My at Aurelius Stoic 1, Marcus Aurelius Stoic 1.
There you go. Hey, thanks everyone. Have a great week. Stay blessed. We will see. This is John D. Villarreal signing off. We will see you next week.